Okay, all right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 15. So we have, after today, we've got 6 days left, if I'm not mistaken, right? 6 days, yeah, because we start. So yeah, after today, 6 days. So we end on Saturday in a week. And yeah, let me know how you're feeling, how you're doing, what's coming up for you. Like, share in the group, share here in the comments if you like. Today's topic is an interesting one, and I've been thinking, when is the best time to bring up this topic? And it results in a homework that is kind of the last one of the bigger homeworks, okay? But that also means that's why I thought it's good to bring it up on the weekend, because then hopefully you have some time to dedicate to this. And I'm also not going to give you any like bigger homework over the next, I'm not going to give you any homework over the next like 1 or 2 days, okay? Because this is a really important part to integrate. And this topic is very, let's say, it is important in order to move on, and it is important in order to set a strong start into 2022. And this is the topic of forgiveness, okay? So we need to be able to forgive ourselves. And we need to be able to forgive ourselves for the smallest things. Now, one of the things we did from the way at the beginning was that we wrote the shit list, remember? So we wrote the one that you burned, and we wrote we extracted all the lessons, and you burned the things that were not going well. Now, what is really important is that actually notes might be working here. What is really important is that we need to forgive ourselves for the things, for everything really, in order to move on. And this is something that we forget, and we take all of the things with us. So the first part is to say, okay, what are the things that happened last year, right? The second part is to extract the lessons. And the third part is that we need to forgive ourselves, but we also need to forgive other people. So forgiving ourselves starts with, like, for example, I told you last year we had some really tough things in the family. And one of the things was, of course, my father's sickness, but at the same time, he also had a divorce. And we had a really horrible lawyer. So she was very good in terms of strategy, but she was horrible in terms of everything else as a person. And I don't say this lightly about people. I'm usually very positive about people. But she was very arrogant, dominant, and she charged for a lot of things, like overtime, and for things where I was like, really, like, you're going to charge me 15 minutes for sending me a text to remind me where the room is in the court? Like, are you serious? That your secretary does, by the way, not you. So these were the kind of things where I was like I got really annoyed. And also she wasted a lot of our time. And so to cut a very long story very short, there were a lot of leadership lessons for me in this, because also what I did is I put her on a pedestal. Like, for me, she was like this, wow, she's a lawyer and she knows what she's doing, and she's very smart and she's very powerful, and she comes into the very masculine energy, she comes into the room and she's there. She's very loud. She interrupts people. But in hindsight, there was nothing I really respected about her. And that was something that I figured out along the way. But what was hard for me is to take the leadership of this entire thing, and to really guide and say, okay, in a very calm way, but like, okay, this is the way we're going and this is what we've decided. And we want to proceed in a way where we don't, take so much of your time and where you don't charge us for sending us a text for which for which building we need to be in the courtroom, right? And I kind of thought, no, she knows what she's doing. And I gave her too much leadership and I didn't take enough myself. And I was so annoyed with myself. Like I held on to this annoyance with myself, annoyance with her, and annoyance with myself for such a long time that it took me forever to pay the last invoice. Like the last invoice, I was like, we're not paying this. This is not okay. She should not have charged us for these stupid little things. Like this is not okay. Especially because at the end of the day, we negotiated with my father's ex-wife for the deal. And so I felt like, why should she why should she get so much money? We already paid her so much. Why should she get so much for absolutely doing nothing at the end of the day? Because we negotiated the result. And this was something where, oh my God, it took me forever. Like had so much anger towards that person and I had so much anger towards the situation and everything. And I couldn't let it go. It was keeping me occupied so many days. And I really had to sit down with myself and understand, okay, first of all, I need to extract the lessons for this, right? Like I need to say, okay, what are all the lessons I learned? This was very expensive lessons, but okay, that's fine. Sometimes that's what's necessary. But I learned so much about leadership in all kinds of ways. I learned leadership about myself. I learned leadership about my family. I learned setting boundaries in a much better way and saying like, look, this is a boundary we're not crossing. We don't accept this. And understanding that lawyers are also only humans and, they don't always know the way and they don't always know what they're doing. They're not always focused and that they don't use the resources in the most efficient way because of course, and especially somebody said this to me once. They said, divorce lawyers are the worst of all lawyers because they make money off people's absolute deepest misery and and they dig up all kinds of shit. That's what people said. It's like divorce lawyers are the worst kinds of lawyers. So this was something that for me last year was a huge lesson, but also I had to dig a little bit deeper and understand where is this coming from, because it makes no sense that I was so annoyed. If you think about it, it's like, okay, it's annoying. It was not good. I should have taken the leadership. It should have been on this level. Like, okay, this wasn't so smart. You take the lesson, and you move on. But I couldn't. It was so emotional for me. And I was so attached to it. I was like, why can't I let go of this? Like, why is it keeping me occupied for such a long time? And so I really had to sit down and look at what is actually going on here emotionally. What is actually happening? Like, why am I so upset? What is really triggering me? Why am I so angry? Why am I so, so sad? Why am I so annoyed with this person? Why, when somebody mentions her name, I could just explode. And I figured out that it had a lot to do, with protecting my family. And it had also a lot to do with my father's sickness that I was projecting there, because what at the end of the day I was projecting was she is abusing the situation that my father is sick. And so this was something that for me was an absolute no-go. And where I got really angry and really upset because it was going against my family and all the things. And when it comes to my family, I become like a little shark, like very protective, which also isn't necessary. And that was also a lesson I learned. So one of the things, so that is where I really had to go deeper, because I noticed it is not normal the way I'm reacting to this. It is not normal. Like other people, and you notice that when you tell other people and you feel a bit uncomfortable sharing the full story, like I now shared the full story of how upset I really was. at the time I kept talking about it. And I was like, can you believe it? Now she did this and now she did that and da, 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 da. And I noticed that I also felt uncomfortable telling other people how annoyed I was about the situation and about not paying the invoice for a couple of months because I was so angry and all the things. And that's where you notice, okay, maybe there's a bit more to this. But also when the emotions are so high, so when there's so much trigger and so much things, that's when you really have to look out for what's happening and what's going on. So that's the first part. So looking a bit deeper to what's going on here when these deep things happen. And the second thing is in my, so I have not yet finalized, I'm still writing my forgiveness thing. So this is the exercise that we're going to do, that you're going to do over the next 2 days. And I'm going to complete mine as well, is to write a forgiveness letter to yourself, where you just sit down and you think about what happened in the last year and you just let the pen flow. Like, don't overthink this. Don't make it too complicated. You can write it either in the form of I forgive myself for, or you can write I, Nadia, forgive myself for, right? It doesn't matter. And so every sentence you start like that and you just let it flow. Like, don't overthink it. And so this is one of the things that that goes into my forgiveness letter, or that went into my forgiveness letter, is this story of forgiving myself for not taking leadership at the right time, forgiving myself for reacting in such an emotional way, forgiving myself for putting her on a pedestal, forgiving myself for getting so annoyed over actually small things, forgiving myself over being so annoyed at the money part as well, right? So this was also something for me where I could have just said, or at the end of the day, by the way, what I did when I paid that bill, this is a funny story in terms of manifesting as well. So when I finished all my emotional garbage around this, I paid the bill. So I took the lessons, I wrote down everything, and I was like, you know what, just let it go. It's better to let this go, and there's no point to drag this on. And of course, she sent a payment reminder, and then the payment reminder got more expensive and all the things. So I got even more annoyed, and I was like, okay, this has to stop here. So I already wrote down a lot of things regarding this, all the lessons last year. And then when I paid it with the intention, and I said, okay, we are going to pay this, and I expect this to come back manyfold through a different channel in order for that will benefit my dad tremendously in terms of increasing the quality of his life. And a week or 2 weeks later, I had a call with his accounting from his company that we closed last year. And they said, yeah, your father still has a bonus with the tax authorities in Austria of several thousand euros. And I was like, there we go. That's my manifestation coming true, right? So these are the things where when you set the intention behind it, you forgive it and you improve it and you make something better out of it. That's when magic really starts to happen. So that's what I did, is I said, okay, I'm going to pay this now, and I'm going to pay it with the target of it's going to come back to us through some other channel, and it's going to multiply itself, right? And so yeah, that just a little side note. So the forgiveness letter is, you need to forgive yourself for all the things. You need to forgive yourself for all the things. Let your pen flow, let it go. And you need to write forgiveness letters to the people that triggered you, right? So if there is like something that you're still holding on to, that you feel like, okay, I still have emotions around this, you need to write a forgiveness letter to that person. So I'm going to write a forgiveness letter to this lawyer. But I have to honestly say, I've been procrastinating it for some days to write this forgiveness letters to other people. So the one of forgiving myself, I've started with. To the other people, I haven't started yet, but it's okay. It's something that's a really good process. So, and you write them those letters, and then what you do is that you burn them. right? So the same we did for the shit things that happened in 2021. You burn those forgiveness letters and you let it all go. And what's important is that you take a bit of time for this, but don't pressure yourself. Like if it takes a couple of days to finish it, if that's all okay, and just feel on it like, okay, do I really need to forgive this person, or is it already forgiven? Like, do they need a separate letter, or is it enough if I just say, okay, I forgive this situation that was caused with this person, right? So probably right now, like the moment I said you need to write forgiveness letters, probably 2, 3, or 4 people popped up right away in your head where you're like, oh, yeah, okay, should forgive this person, this person, this person. Those are the ones you should write forgiveness letters to. Okay, you don't need to forgive your, I don't know, gardener for screwing up the hedge, right? That's not something, unless you really hold a grudge for it. That's also okay. So this is such an important exercise. Please do this, even if you don't do it right now, even if you're feeling overwhelmed and not catching up. Like, I don't mind when you do it, but just make sure that you do this at some point in the next like week, 2 weeks, doesn't matter. But it feels so good to do this. It is such a big release. And it is so easy to procrastinate a little bit around this as well and be like, no, I don't want to do it, and I don't feel good, and that. So really take the time to do this and let it all go. Okay. Okay. Questions, ladies?
Yeah. Go on, Charlotte.
Yeah. Now, I sort of missed the last bit. You said forgiveness letter to the people who have annoyed us or hurt us or whatever. But then you said, I forgive the situation, or say something about it. Can you, I don't know, I spaced out, I think. Can you go back to that?
Yeah. So
I had so many people to forgive, so I started immediately thinking about it.
Your list got very long. Okay. So the difference between, you really, at the end of the day, you need to feel in your gut feeling if you're going to write a forgiveness letter, or if you're just going to include it in the list of I forgive myself for the situation of blah, 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 right? And so it's a gut feeling thing. What I do is I differentiate between, is there still a lot of emotions around this, or is it just something that's actually already completed and I can just let it go? If that's the case, it just goes in, I forgive myself for this situation, blah, 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 right? Like, for example, I think I told you the story about my friend that crossed my boundaries and took me as a career coach. Did I tell you that at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, that's for me something where it's complete for me. It's not, I'm not annoyed with her anymore. We cleared the situation. We spoke about it. It's all okay. I can let it go. And I'm just going to say, I forgive myself for letting my friend overstep my boundaries and not like stepping in earlier, blah, blah, blah. Right. That goes in my forgiveness letter to myself. I don't feel I need to write her own forgiveness letter. Right. Because it's done, it's over. I have no more emotions attached to it. It's very easy to just write it in a sentence. I forgive myself for the things I didn't do well in my eyes, right? That led to this situation. The lawyer, I cannot put that in my complete forgiveness list. That needs an own letter. I need to forgive this lady in an own letter. Okay, that does not, and it might be a long letter as well. So this might not be an easy one. My father's ex-wife, I need to write her an own letter. These are the kind of things, where you notice, okay, there are emotions that are just like, it's time, and also the situation is finished. Like, I'm no longer in contact with my father's ex-wife. I'm no longer in contact with a lawyer. Like, these people are out of my life. So it's the perfect time to write them a forgiveness letter and really let it go, right?
But what do you actually write? Because if you have a grudge, I forgive you for being such an asshole. I mean, what do you?
Whatever comes up.
It's not like you need to be nice to them. It's like you can tell them anything. But it's more getting rid of your own emotions that are attached to this.
It's getting rid of your
what do
own
you do? Give me an
emotion.
example.
but for example,
Yeah, what would you tell your friend, and what would you tell your lawyer, for example?
well, like I said, my friend, that's done. So she's not going to get a forgiveness letter because that's just going to go into my own, in my own forgiveness thing, right? So for my friend, it would go something like this. I forgive myself for letting my friend XYZ step over my boundaries, and for not telling her earlier that, you know, this is not something that I want to do, that this is something that I'm not, you know, I didn't sign up for, that I didn't tell her in a loving way, and that I didn't step up earlier to tell her that I let it go so far. Like I had so many chances to say, look, I'm not okay with this. And you know, that's something that I'm going to write in that forgiveness letter, for example. So it is very much also being reflective of what you also didn't do well. So for the lawyer, there will be two parts. So there's going to be a part in my forgiveness letter, and there's going to be a part in her forgiveness letter. So in my forgiveness letter, it's going to go something like this. I forgive myself for not having more powerful leadership at the time, and stepping up in the right moment and taking leadership and stepping up stronger, and saying no means no and not maybe no, right? For missing things, I forgive myself for reacting in a childish way of not paying the invoice forever, because that even made the situation worse. I forgive myself for reacting in such an emotional way. I forgive myself like for all these things, right? For her, it's going to be, I forgive her for, okay, what do I forgive her for? I forgive her for invoicing, Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, I mean, it's not, that's why I say I've been procrastinating quite a bit. I'm not going to say this is easy. That's why it's taking some time, and that's why you're not getting any other homework from me. So for example, it could be, I forgive her for invoicing us for stupid, ridiculous stuff. Okay, that could be my starting point. I could say, I forgive her for showing up drunk to one of our meetings. I forgive her for continuing to call my dad and trying to get him involved in the situation, even though he knew of his situation and knew that he wasn't capable of doing any decisions. I forgive her for procrastinating on certain things and like continue to have conversations with the other lawyer, even though she knew there was no point. And just like making more time, right? Pushing this along. I forgive her for, what else? I forgive her for screaming at me. So she yelled at me in a very unprofessional way. So I'm going to forgive her for that. I forgive her for, what else? So all the things, right? So these are all the things.
Well, what is actually the goal with this? What achieve here with doing this?
The goal with it is that you don't hold on to these things, because like you say, if you say, I forgive you for being an asshole, there's a lot of emotion there. So, you know, that's something where you don't want to take that emotion with you into this new year. Like we have to let things go. We have to let things go, because otherwise, you know, it holds you back in so many areas of your life. And the thing is that during the year, often we don't take the time to do this stuff, these kind of things. So that's why now is a powerful time. Like, honestly, if we would sit down every month and write forgiveness letters to ourselves and to people that have annoyed us or triggered us or done things or whatever, caused situations, this world would be a much better place and we would feel so much better. But the point is that when we let this go, it no longer, like, it transforms into something where you feel so refreshed, you feel so much lighter, you feel as if you've got your whole backpack of stones that just fell right off you. It is extremely powerful. It is extremely powerful to do this. Trust me. Like, do one and see how it feels. Like, start with one forgiveness letter to somebody else, burn it and see how it feels. You will see, you will feel so much better. Because,
but isn't it true though that some people you might have to write a couple or a few letters,
sure,
or do you keep it in one and just keep going? Because, you know, I have a former business partner, for example, that I separated from for 4 years ago, but I still have, you know, bad feelings around him. So I'm gonna absolutely write him a long letter. But you know, it is a few years back, and he doesn't bother me physically or geographically nowadays. But he's still in there, and I'm still annoyed at certain things.
Well, you know, the thing is, so first of all, I know that you told me that you're planning a couple of new things business-wise with other business partners. So
Yeah.
if you are still holding a bit of a grudge for that, or if it's still somewhere present, it's going to be, you're going to take those things a bit with you. It's like a big backpack you're always carrying on your back, right? And it is holding you back in a way. So that's why it's really important and really good that you let that go, and you let it go now as you enter into new business partnerships.
Yeah.
Best time, right?
True,
So
true.
that's the first thing. The second thing is that it doesn't matter how often, like I would just write, see what comes up. If you feel it's not complete, like leave it lying there for 1 or 2 days, see if something else comes up. And if nothing else comes up, burn it. And if then, you know, on some day you read a post of him on Facebook or on LinkedIn, or I don't know what, you know, it comes up, it somehow he pops up, and you still feel like, oh, I'm still annoyed and this and that, left and right, start again, you know, start again, do it again, burn that one. And you do it as many times until you feel no more, like there's nothing emotional coming up anymore. That's how you do that. Okay, but what's also important, Charlotte, is to, when I do these things, is to extract the lessons, right? So forgiveness is always combined with extracting the lesson. So that's why it's really important that first you extract the lesson, and then you write the forgiveness letter and you burn the forgiveness letter.
What do
Because
you mean extract? Give an example of extracting lessons with the lawyer.
so the lawyer, for example, for me, I learned so much about my own leadership. I learned so much about my own leadership and my own boundaries. It was a very powerful, like, honestly, that lawyer made me step up my game in terms of leadership and boundaries in a way that I've never experienced before. So in a way, I'm very grateful. I also learned a lot of money lessons around that, like not paying the bills because I was so annoyed. You know, it was a really stupid thing, but I learned a lot about that, because I was like, why are you doing this? Like, you think she's going to change if you don't pay the bill? No. You think she's going to charge you less if you don't pay the bill? No. So, you know, what are you waiting for? So there were a lot of lessons that I learned in terms of leadership, boundaries, money, not putting people on pedestals. Like, I thought she was like this big shot lawyer. In reality, she's an alcoholic that has a lot of problems and a lot of issues. And, you know, and actually we figured out there are several court cases running against her for misrepresenting her clients. So there are things where you're like, you know, there's so many powerful lessons in this. So that's why it's important to extract the lessons first, and then forgive, or do it at the same time, right? So you can even have one list on your left side where you say, okay, the lesson is, and then I forgive you for doing this and this and this and this. And it's like, okay, what else happened? Oh, this happens. Like, okay, what was the lesson from that? Okay, this is the lesson. I forgive you for doing this and this and this, right? So that's the way you can do that. And in some things, there's not a lesson. It's just going to be like, what is the lesson out of her charging us for stupid things? There is no lesson behind that. Again, it's a boundary topic. It falls onto the category of boundaries, but I don't need to take every example and say I should have set my boundaries for her not charging us for texting us the location of where we're going to meet in court. It falls under the category of boundaries. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Perfect. Françoise, your question.
Yes. So you have mentioned 2 examples of people who are outside your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if it's somebody from the family?
Oh, I have examples there too. Don't worry. I have examples there too. Don't worry.
Families, they're still there, right? So you cannot just say, okay, it's past, they're out of my life. No, they're still there and they're coming back.
So what's important is that, okay, first of all, when we do the burning and the forgiveness thing, we forgive the situations, we don't burn the people. Okay, so just because they're out of our life doesn't mean I'm burning the people. Like, I'm not going to burn the lawyer, I'm just going to burn the situations, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you can still forgive people that are still in your life. Because family is not going to go anywhere. You can still forgive them, and you will see that it will shift your relationship in a very powerful way if you just do that and you forgive them. And if new things come up, you will not react as strongly. I had this, for example, with a couple of family members this year, where things just happen, and things like, let's say, the illness of my father really put a magnifying glass on all the things that were already going on for years, but nobody in the family ever looked at, right? So it's like the situation exploded on so many other areas and levels of things that we were, it's the nasty things you put in the closet and you close the closet quickly. And it's like, you're in there and I'm not, like, that mess in there, we don't open the closet ever, right? So it's just like you open it, you put something in, and then you close it again. And at some point that closet is going to explode. And this is what happened in our family. And so I'm going to write a big forgiveness letter to my brother. We had a lot of situations this year that were in the way he communicated about me and the things he said about me, and his wife said about me. There were things there where I was like, you don't say these things ever about anybody, and you don't say it about your family. So there's a big forgiveness part there. But to be honest, I had a conversation with him about it. So it's not something that just goes in a forgiveness letter. Like, people that remain in your life, you have to clear the air, and you have to have powerful conversations in order to move on from this. So I had a conversation with him. I told it to him. The result of that conversation was not what I expected, because, well, typically what you do is you apologize, which he didn't do. But okay, for me, it was important to get to deposit the things where they belong, and without being attached to the outcome of the situation. And so my forgiveness letter to myself is going to be a lot about the situation, but it's also going to be a lot about my forgiveness letter to him, to my brother specifically, is going to be a big one this year for sure. That's one where really I'm going to let go of a lot of things of that, and hopefully also resolve that for the future. Like, I don't want to get into the situation again in the future. And that's something that I told him. That was my main concern. I was like, we don't talk about each other in this family in this way. This is not something that is okay. And it doesn't matter under how much stress you are, how many nights your kids keep you awake, you don't say these things. This is not good. So this is, that's the big difference, right? Like, I'm not going to sit down with a lawyer, pay her for another hour of sitting down and saying, I still have something to tell you. Like, you are, I need to forgive you, or I need to tell you that you suck. Like, it's not going to happen, right? But for people that stay in your life, you need to have that conversation. So that is something that if you haven't yet done that, where there are people in your family that you need to have a conversation with, then you can still write that forgiveness letter, but you need to plan the time to have those conversations. It's very important.
So I'm okay with that, but what if the person in front is not okay with that? And
to have a conversation, you mean? Or
yeah, yes.
Okay, well,
yes.
Then you know what? Like, write the forgiveness letter, and just keep the door open to say, okay, when they're going to be ready, they're going to be ready, and then we're going to have that conversation finished. And in the meantime, you forgive them and you forgive yourself for the situation. That's it. If they don't want to talk, then what are you going to do? You can't change that. If they're not willing to talk, you can just keep on knocking from time to time, and just say, okay, but if they're not ready, then maybe it's also better that you don't have that conversation, because if they're not ready, to have that conversation, then it's probably also not going to go very well. And then you're going to be disappointed at the end of it anyway. So people have to be ready for certain conversations. Yeah, but you need to deposit it at the right place, the emotions. And that's why these forgiveness letters are really important. Yeah, but thanks for bringing that up. It's a good point. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? All right, good, ladies. Then I wish you a wonderful Saturday, lots of success with your forgiveness letters. And yeah, like I said, it is so important, like, especially if there are certain situations or certain intentions you're setting for this year, then it is really important to let go of things from the past. So for example, if you are like last year, I wrote a forgiveness letter to my ex-partner because I stepped into a new relationship, and I forgave him for a lot of things, but I also forgave myself for a lot of things. And that was really important. Now, this year, I'm not going to write him a forgiveness letter again, because yeah, that was last year. So that's, it depends on the kind of things that are going on in your life to understand, okay, what are my intentions for this year? What are some things that I want to do? And is there anybody I need to forgive in order to move on into the next level, right? This is really important. Like, I've spoken recently to a friend of mine about this. She's going to have a baby. And I said, listen, why don't you write a forgiveness letter to your parents and release them from everything that you think that you need to forgive them for whilst you're pregnant. It might be so powerful for you stepping into the role of becoming a parent, right? So this is something where when we step into something new, we need to let go of old things in the past that we no longer want to carry around. And if there are people involved, then we need to forgive them. Okay. All right, ladies, I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. Enjoy this exercise. I will see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow, as I said, there's not going to be any homework. So this is going to be the homework for the weekend. So you're not going to get anything else from me. Don't worry. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow morning. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.